I was exercising daily, eating pretty healthy, yet I wasn't losing any weight. In fact, I was losing and regaining the same 5 pounds. And then I finally figured out that I wasn't eating healthy at all. When I cut out 5 foods from my diet, I immediately lost 30 pounds in 75 days, and I was floored. And so then I went on to lose 70 pounds in 9 months and 90 pounds overall. I lost so much belly fat after the first 70 pounds down that I ended up having a tummy tuck to remove loose skin because it was starting to impact my workouts. So let me share with you those 5 foods that I cut out of my diet and what I replaced them with. Now, I remember as a little girl, my breakfast of choice was cold cereal. And we're talking things like Fruit Loops and Frosted Flakes and Cocoa Puffs. And so as I got a little older, my taste started to change, and I recognized, this cereal is probably not the healthiest for me. Let me move on to something else. And now I'm kind of in my teens. I'm dieting. I'm learning more about what dieting is and what I should be eating and what I shouldn't be eating. And so I transitioned to things like Rice Krispies and Kix and Special K. Now, if you remember anything about Special K, you'll remember that it was actually marketed as a diet cereal. So I thought that I was actually eating healthy by eating these different types of cereal. Now, never mind that I was still sprinkling table sugar on them. I still thought that I was eating healthier. Well, in 2001, 2002, Kellogg's came out with Special K red berries, and oh my gosh, it was so good, and I didn't even need to put table sugar on it. That's how sweet it was. And so I was eating Special K red berries all the time. I would eat it for breakfast, I would eat it for lunch, I would eat it for dinner. Like, it was my go-to food for a really long time. Now, the problem with that is that 1 cup of Special K red berries has 140 calories and 11 grams of added sugar. And we're not even talking about the milk. We're talking about just 1 cup of cereal. Now, the bigger problem was that I wasn't eating just 1 cup. I was eating more like 2 to 3 cups of this cereal at a time. And what was happening, especially in the morning, was that I was eating all of this sugar, and I was spiking my blood glucose, which then, my body reacts by pumping all of this insulin into my bloodstream. I'm having a crash now, and my body just simply craves more sugar. It's waiting for the next sugar hit. And so by mid-morning, I'm like starving, have to put something else into my mouth, snacking on something because of this never-ending cycle that I created because I was eating nothing but sugar first thing in the morning. And so when I started my weight loss journey, I had to realize, you know what? Special K red berries is probably not the healthiest thing that you could eat. I mean, it wasn't giving me a lot of protein. And so I had to trade in my Special K red berries for things like banana pancakes, which has 2 eggs in it, and it gives me 12 grams of protein. Or I'll also eat a bowl of oatmeal with the protein shake. And that protein shake by itself gives me 30 grams of protein. And if I add a scoop of protein powder, now it gives me 55 grams of protein first thing in the morning. There are times now when I'll have breakfast and then I'll go to work and I'll get busy and I'll look up and it's almost lunchtime. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even, stop for a mid-morning snack. I didn't feel the need to stop and to eat something. I wasn't craving anything like I was before when I was eating all of that sugar first thing in the morning. So I could definitely tell a difference in my body when I let that cold cereal go in favor of foods that was more filling, more nutritious for me. And I was amazed that it helped me to lose 30 pounds in the first 75 days. Now, believe it or not, I like to eat out. I don't really like leftover foods. I like my foods fresh, and so I tend to eat a lot of foods on the go, foods while I'm out, fast food if you will. And you don't get to 218 pounds by eating the most healthiest things that there are out there. But I was so convinced that a cheeseburger Happy Meal from McDonald's was healthy for me. And the reason why I thought that it was healthy for me was because in a past weight loss journey, that was one of the things that I would eat. That was one of my go-to eating out meals, is I would eat a cheeseburger, I would have French fries, and then I would order a kid's size sweet tea. Yes, a kid's size sweet tea. And so I was eating this, and at the time I was counting calories. So I wasn't counting macros. I wasn't worried about sugar content. The only thing I was counting was calories. So if it would fit within my calorie target for that day, then I was eating it. And so I had convinced myself, because of this, past weight loss journey where I was eating cheeseburger Happy Meals all the time, I had convinced myself that it was healthy for me. And then at some point in time, I realized that every time I would eat this meal from McDonald's, I would have issues with my stomach. And, I thought it was a fluke the first few times, but then it was like, no, this is every time. Something's not right. And so when I started this weight loss journey, I just had to get real with myself and say, you know what? McDonald's probably isn't the healthiest thing for you. Even if the meal is only, 400 calories or whatever it is, it's doing something to your body. And so I had to come up with something else, a healthier alternative that I could eat on a regular basis when I needed to eat out on my weight loss journey. And so I came up with the Chipotle kids meal, which is 2 flour tortillas. I can get chicken, which is a protein. I can get peppers and onions. I can get rice. I can get corn. I can get the salsa. But these are all things, other than the tortilla, which is processed. This is mostly clean food, right? Like, it's chicken, it's corn, it's rice. They're things that are mostly whole, mostly unprocessed, and probably just a better option for me than the McDonald's cheeseburger Happy Meal. And another alternative, another place that I go to when I need to eat out, is to Chick-fil-A, because Chick-fil-A has a kids meal that is 4 chicken nuggets, and then I substitute a fruit cup for the waffle fries, and then I usually have water instead of whatever their drink is that comes with the kids meal. And so I really had to get real about whether or not, what I was eating before the McDonald's was healthy for me. And come to find out, of course it wasn't. And I was really, really surprised when, I traded that for Chipotle and Chick-fil-A, something that was actually a little healthier for me, right? And it made such a world of difference. I don't have those same digestive issues eating the Chipotle or eating the Chick-fil-A that I had with eating the McDonald's food. But just making that simple change and making sure that the food was a little more nutritious, a little more healthy, a little less unprocessed, made the world of difference in my weight loss journey. Now, here's another food that I was eating, and I thought that it was healthy, and it absolutely was not. And I blame gym culture for this. And that was smoothies. And the reason why I say I blame gym culture for it is because you would see people in the gym all the time drinking smoothies afterwards. You would see them, in Smoothie King or Tropical Smoothie. Heck, some of the gyms even have smoothie bars in them, right? And I guess it kind of depends on what's actually in your smoothie and how the smoothies are made. But back then, when I was drinking smoothies nonstop, you couldn't tell me that I wasn't, being healthy, because that's what I saw the healthy people doing. I just didn't realize that the smoothies that I was actually drinking were not healthy for me. In fact, they were just loaded down with processed sugar. I mean, even now, every now and again, I will still have a smoothie, but it just simply reminds me that I am just liquid sugar hitting my bloodstream, spiking my glucose. Here comes the insulin. Here comes the sugar crash. And now I want something else to eat. It is the reason why you cannot get full off a smoothie if you are drinking smoothies loaded down with sugar. And so while smoothies are great, they taste good. You can, put fruits in them. You can have vegetables in them. And they can seem really healthy. You really have to watch the sugar content in the smoothies that you're drinking. Not all smoothies are created equal. And so I had to cut out smoothies. Now, one of the foods that I have replaced that smoothie with is an avocado banana pudding. And if you want a copy of that recipe, click on the link in the video description and download that. But I really like this avocado banana pudding. It's really good. It's whole foods. In fact, I actually learned about it when I was following a whole foods diet some years ago, and I still keep it in rotation on my diet right now. And it's really good. It has the creamy texture to it. You put it in the refrigerator so it's cold. And so it's kind of like a treat. It has the banana, so it has a little sweetness to it, but it's natural sugars. It's not sugars that will cause that blood sugar spike that's not good for you. And so definitely have to watch the smoothies. I definitely had to do away with them in my diet, and when I did is when I found success on my weight loss journey. Now, I remember as a little girl, my mom being part of a weight loss support group called Slim and Trim. And, they would have recipes, and they would, do exercises, and they would meet once a week maybe. She would go to these meetings, and they would talk about how, their progress was going. It was like a Weight Watchers, but it was called something different. And so, my mom did really well with this support group. She did really well on whatever diet it was that they were following. But one of the things that she ate on her diet was ginger snaps. And I remember her losing a lot of weight. And so for whatever reason, I had equated, in my mind that ginger snaps were healthy because my mom ate them on her diet and she lost a lot of weight. And I had to realize that ginger snaps are loaded with sugar. I don't know how many ginger snaps she was eating a day. Maybe she was eating 1 or 2. I think the serving size on ginger snap is 4 cookies. I could tell you now, I was probably eating more like 12 to 20 at a time. And so I wasn't eating just 1 serving of these cookies, but somehow I thought that I was eating healthy because I was eating ginger snaps instead of Oreos. And when I started this weight loss journey and I cut out processed sugar completely, I had to cut out ginger snaps. And that was what, kind of led me to realize they're not healthy at all, but I was eating them like they were. But they're still cookies that are loaded with processed sugar. And I think that I like them, of course, because they were sweet, but they also gave me a little crunch. And so now instead of ginger snaps, I'll eat things like Granny Smith apples sliced, dipped in some peanut butter. I'll eat things like rice cakes with peanut butter spread on it, which gives me that same crunch. And the peanut butter gives me that little sweetness that, I was craving from the ginger snaps. But now instead of eating all this processed sugar, which was just making me sick and keeping me overweight, I'm now actually eating foods that taste good and are healthier for me. I'm not eating as much sugar as I was in the past. And that experience was, one of the things that made me realize that a lot of the things that we think we know and a lot of the things that we do, especially when it comes to things like our health and what we eat and whether or not we exercise, is all just learned behavior. Because what would make me think that a ginger snap was a healthy food, but for the fact that I equated it to weight loss because my mom ate them and lost weight? It's not a healthy food. And I learned that the hard way. And once I stopped eating them, I was then successful on my weight loss journey. And then let's talk about trail mix. Because right before my weight loss journey started, I was on what I call a trail mix kick. I was eating trail mix by the handful all day long. And I will tell you what started that. I went to the spa and they had little cups of trail mix because I had never eaten trail mix before. Like I didn't really, it wasn't something that was on my radar. But they had little cups of trail mix at the spa and they had like the little peanuts and it had like the little candy, you know, M&Ms, and it had like little white chocolate morsels in it. And it was so delicious that I started to buy trail mix out of the store. And then I started to eat it just by the handfuls. That combination of sugar and salt, which is actually very intentional, by the way. It is how they keep you eating it, the combination of sugar and salt. And that's exactly what I was doing, eating it all the time. And so when I started my weight loss journey, I knew immediately, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it, that the trail mix could not go on this journey with me. In fact, I remember having a tub of trail mix in the trunk of my car when I started my weight loss journey. And you know how you start a weight loss journey and then right before you start, you're like, but I need to finish this, but I need to finish that, but I need to... And I remember that this trail mix was in the trunk of the car and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna finish it. It doesn't have that power over me. I'm gonna start my weight loss journey. I'm gonna get through these 75 days and I'm just not gonna eat the trail mix. And it was one of those things where I had to continue to say no all the time. You know, I remembered that it was there and I had to continue to say no to that voice in my head, that food noise that makes you wanna go to the trunk of the car and eat the trail mix. I had to continue to flex and say no to it. And I remember one time my husband opened the trunk of my car and he was like, do you know you have trail mix in the trunk of your car? You want me to take it out? You want me to throw it away? And I was like, no, leave it in there, because I am flexing that no muscle. I'm flexing my discipline against this trail mix. I know that it's in there and it's in there for a reason. And you know, I want to keep it in there. And so he left it in there, but I had to say no to the trail mix. I couldn't even pretend that the trail mix was healthy for me at that point, because I was probably consuming the equivalent of 2 to 3 bags of M&Ms a day because of the candy coated chocolate that was in the trail mix, and I'm just continuously eating it all day long. It had to be the equivalent of 2 to 3 bags of M&Ms, and I was continuing to get fatter and fatter, not just gain weight, but I was gaining more fat. So when I talk about losing and regaining the same 5 pounds, it was 5 pounds on the scale, but it was a different 5 pounds. I might have lost 5 pounds of water weight, but I was regaining 5 pounds of fat. I was getting heavier and heavier, bigger and bigger, because I was simply gaining fat, eating all this trail mix all the time. So when I started my weight loss journey, I had to say no to the trail mix and I had to replace it with something that was a little healthier for me. So I found these Kind protein bars that you can buy out of the grocery store. I bought them right off the shelf. And so I would eat these Kind bars, but I wouldn't eat a lot of them. I might have ate one every few days or so. You know, they were mostly clean. They do have some processed ingredients in them, so they're not a completely clean food. They're not a completely whole food, but it was about as close as I could get. And you know, it was contained, so I wasn't able to free feed off of these bars like I could a tub of trail mix. And it gave me the salt with the peanuts, and it gave me the little bit of sugar, you know, with the little drizzle of chocolate on top. And you know, again, I was able to, you know, eat just one, and I would just eat one, and then that would be it, and then I'd be satisfied, and you know, I wouldn't need another one for another few days. When I stopped eating that trail mix, which, you know, just was not healthy for me in no shape or form, like I couldn't even lie to myself and say that it was. And so getting rid of the trail mix and replacing it with the Kind bars was one of the best things that I absolutely could have done, because my weight was just getting away from me eating all that trail mix all the time. Now, if you've gotten this far in the video and you've listened to me talk about, you know, these 5 foods that I had to cut out my diet in order to lose weight, what you'll recognize is an underlying theme of processed sugar. I was eating nothing but processed sugar all day long. And I would venture to say that I had a sugar addiction because I had to have it. Now, I talk a lot about, processed sugar, the cakes, the candies, the pies, the ice cream. But, listen to some of the foods that I talked about that I was eating before. That's not any of those things. Cold cereal, sweet tea, trail mix, the ginger snaps, like the smoothie. And it was what was keeping me overweight. It was keeping me obese. And again, I could lose 5 pounds, but I would regain it right back because of the foods that I was eating. And so when I say that I eliminated foods out of my diet and I saw an immediate difference in my weight, what I'm really saying is I cut out processed sugar. And I got really serious about protein first, making sure that I stayed full and wasn't eating all of that sugar anymore that was causing the constant cravings. And I looked up after the first 75 days and I had lost 30 pounds. And when you look at my before and after photo, you can tell that I was losing weight. I was losing that fat from my midsection. That is typically where we store fat when we're constantly eating sugar. And I know people will say, well, belly fat is the last fat to go. Look at my before and after photo of my first 75 days. When I cut out that processed sugar, my belly seemed to be the first thing to go. And so I equate that to I was holding belly fat because I was eating all of this processed sugar. And when I eliminated that sugar from my diet, then my body started to burn off that belly fat and I was able to lose 30 pounds in 75 days. Now, I quit the sugar cold turkey. I started a 75-day challenge. I woke up on day 1. I just did not eat any more processed sugar. I said to myself, you know what? If you want the M&Ms in 75 days, they are not going out of business. They will be there in 75 days. You can have them in 75 days if you still want them. And so that's how I got through the 75 days of no processed sugar. And then by the time I got to the end of 75 days, again, I had lost 30 pounds. And now I see progress. I don't even want the sugar anymore, right? Because I'm not craving it anymore. I went on to lose 70 pounds in 9 months and 90 pounds overall. So I hope this video has been helpful to you and maybe you can relate to some of the things that I was eating that I thought was healthy for me and come to find out it wasn't. It was just loaded with sugar. If it has been helpful, take a moment and give the video a thumbs up so that other women just like you can find this video and learn what those things are that they should also be eliminated from their diet if they want to see weight loss success. And if you haven't joined the Get Fit community yet, take a moment and hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you here as part of the community. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.